Hello, this is Jer, and this is my highlights of successfully getting the Carnivore achievements and the Last Blasted Fence on hard mode. One of the things that I've discovered after many failed attempts is make sure we get that polluted water event discoverable early on so it starts outputting liquid right away. Of course, any playthrough, I always start getting a barracks and a latrine together. The other thing I noticed, there's lots of carbon dioxide to the left. I'm avoiding going down that way like I did earlier, and instead going up to get some metal. This is also a metal poor asteroid, so we have that extra challenge of having to dig out a little bit more metal than I guess I would otherwise need to. So, of course, going to the research portal and discovering one of our goals, which on hard mode without teleportation, a metal poor asteroid trying to take down Demolier while getting the Locavore and Carnivore achievement, and just discovering where I'm going to have an impact if I don't stop this guy. So, given the fact I want to get the Locavore achievement, I'm digging out all around trying to avoid some of these wild node critter, or node plants rather, so that they can output some figs later on. And also setting a wire so I can build a pump, so I can install electrolyzer as soon as possible, because I want that oxygen and hydrogen down there. And I plan to continuing to dig out all around and opening up a spot at the top of the base for some hydrogen to float, so we have some hydrogen to be able to use. Also, no research really going on just yet. One of the first dupes I bring in is Scientist. Now that I know that research is going to be going on, we're getting an electric wire going to the top of the base, because I know eventually I'm going to want to have a pump up there to pull in some hydrogen. When Scientist gets to work, get both a pump and an electrolyzer going for both oxygen and hydrogen, of course. Earlier on, I was digging up the top of the base for some buried objects, trying to avoid some having to dig through hydrogen later on. Now I slowly make my way down to the middle and eventually start digging down. Of course, I want to avoid going having this water go with us because I've got a pitcher pump. Eventually, I want to get that into some micro meshers later on. Unlocking some research with Scientist's great work. Fire pole going in at this point. Very much excited about having hydrogen at the top of the base, so building both a pump and a pipe going down. Ranching is something, again, going for the Carnivore achievement here, so bringing in rancher skill as early as possible. Well, at least after scientific research can begin. Again, digging out some of these buried objects so we don't have to use the micro mesher just yet, and going carefully around some of those nodes so I can feed some of our lum critters, which I use as our meat production. Adding in yet another electrolyzer. And I also decide I'm going to keep the outhouses, unlike some of my other attempts where I upgrade to washroom, because I want lots of dirt, polluted dirt specifically. Another electrolyzer going down further so we can explore the bottom of the base a little bit easier, as well as pulling in more hydrogen, which is super useful. Notice I've got a single manual generator, trying to get away from that as soon as possible. So getting close to cycle 10, which is the point where I know I'm going to run out of buried objects. So making sure we get a series of micro mushers so we can do multiple loadings, and the specialized cook can go from micro musher to micro musher. Electric grill also is super useful as well. Pulling in shaft so we can get the micro musher going. I want to minimize them being able to use the micro musher, but for a certain amount of time, it's got to happen either way. Either we're going to have starving dupes, or I'm not going to get the Locavore achievement. I know I'm going to get way too much carbon dioxide, so I'm putting up a infinite storage here to be able to take care of that, not have that be an issue throughout this playthrough. This is where I start manually cutting and reattaching the hydrogen so that we can minimize the amount of the manual generator. Putting in a rock crusher, again trying to get that to run without our manual generator. A little bit of lights going in, no automation just yet. Collecting a little bit of water here to finish my system of infinite storage of carbon dioxide. Again, still having to attach and retach our hydrogen generator as I need to put in some power in those jumbo batteries. So now we get into automation. One of the things I want to do is automate at the bottom, so then when we have carbon dioxide, or at least not oxygen, that system will run. We've got automated lights next to the rock crusher as well. Getting our smart battery is something I desperately want. I don't have enough metal for it, but I'm making the infrastructure around it. At the top of the base, I've been getting tired connecting and disconnecting the pump up here based on how much hydrogen we got. So some automation, so I don't have to do that anymore. This is always the point in my playthroughs where I feel really good. Manual generator, so I don't have to cut and reconnect our hydrogen line. I know a steam turbine, you want... After getting 8 regular dupes, I start thinking about normal, or the bionic dupes, also digging out some of this water weed, because I know that's going to help a little bit with the locavore achievement and minimizing the micro musher. So some of the infrastructure for bionic dupes going in. Digging down here, putting in a spot for my bleach stone so we don't get too much chlorine. At this point, we still don't have bionic dupes. Eventually, I want to get them to take over just because there's such a lack of oxygen down here. This is my final regular dupe farmer. I know that their skills aren't going to really be able to be benefited from until we get the locavore achievement, but they can at least help us consume more food to be able to get the locavore achievement. Also, power plant being produced. Noticing that my polluted water vent nearly filled, so we're going to make sure we knock that over. Just so that has room for more polluted water. Also, in the several attempts, the mega frond grains completely ignored that. That's a source of food where I don't have to worry about. Also, that guy there, identifying that I want to go and try to get their with feathers to make sure they produce more eggs as wild critter. Making a door right there just to control the regular dupes from not going in any further and waiting for our bionic dupes. So here I'm putting in sinks, make sure that hands are being able to wash, but keeping the outhouses again so we can get some of that polluted dirt when I eventually need lots of sea comb. Our first bionic dupe has arrived, bringing in the really good digging skills and upping their just general digging till I get 15 skills and getting them down here because I want hydrogen, excessive amount of hydrogen, to be able to keep them alive and bring in more bionic dupes after them. So putting in a pump down here, so eventually when the Saturn critter traps that are down here, you can see all that pink, starts producing lots of that, we can take advantage of it. A little bridge here, super important to make sure one of those betas go over into our Saturn critter, our 4th Saturn critter trap. All right, so let's to upgrade array. So at this point, I am putting in 2 separate great halls, one for the bionic dupes. I'm realizing putting them next to their charging station makes a little bit more sense. Don't have automation on that, but taking a note for next time. If I put automation together with that, it would really help. But at least this is going to up morale and at least keep the location where batteries are being dropped off, be close to where they need to be charged up. Oh, right. So bringing in our electrical engineering booster, but this is the point where I forcibly try to stress the dupes. I actually brought every single regular dupe in as a binge eater so that I can get the locavore achievement a little bit quicker. I'm figuring if binge eaters eat a lot more, we can work towards that and cross that off and get to farming and do some of the other things we want to do with that. to be able to make sure we get the ultimately carnivore achievement much easier ultimately with some stables, but we'll see that in a little bit. So this is a little pool area I'm setting up in front of the barracks, forcing the dupes. Also noticing that there was a little bit of sick on the floor down here. And deciding, well, if my goal is to stress dupes out, get them to eat more, you know what? Why bother mopping up? Realizing as well the smokers are super useful for multiplying food, so getting those in much earlier than I did in my failed attempts earlier. Keep upping the number of bionic dupes. This is the third one so far. Cash joining the team. Let's do a couple things. Experimenting with the bottle filler. Didn't realize that there's only 200 kilograms of water, so you need multiple of those. So I had a little bit of a hiccup here. If I had done this again, I would have had a series of those around just to be able to fill all the micro mushers. In fact, I think, yeah, this is the point where I'm bringing up a pipe so I can get an additional bottle filler. But kind of regretting just not keeping the pitcher pump in a little spot there to dump that. But it ultimately works out nonetheless. So maybe that's still the right. Getting close to getting a locavore achievement done, and I'm realizing, oh, at this point, I don't want stressed out dupes anymore. We better get a foot massage table on base. Realizing my plan of getting the locavore achievement a little bit earlier with the binge eatings working out, so setting up some stables. The highest priority is getting node plants growing, just kind of working out how I want that to be designed here. Ultimately go, which is not my standard, but a height of 3 across here, just so I can make them a little bit wider, because those Aura Grove nodes, they grow quite wide. The carnivore achievement desired. And here's where I start adding some water in the Aura Grove nodes and setting up multiple stables where eventually I want to bring in lums. A number of lums much earlier than definitely earlier than my failed attempts at trying to do this. That go over a little bit more. Oh, and very importantly, the mimicas also growing in here so we can get the extra figs out of this whole setup. So again, some of the Aura Grove nodes staying an additional 1. And this is pretty much where I end on episode 1. So I've got the locavore achievement done. I'm growing my Aura Grove nodes much earlier than I have, and I start locating some lums in stables. And really hoping at this point that stress is going to go down and we'll get ultimately enough meat from those lums to get the carnivore achievement. I've got another task for you, but not ideal. At the start of cycle 2, I am starting to get some farming together just because I want to get off the micro musher as quick as possible. I know that getting meat from this whole setup is going to take a little bit of time. So sweet corn and mimicas going down below where we've got our smokers. And bunch of people to do that. Deciding I might as well put in the mimicas first, wait for them to grow. And I know that's an additional polluted water vent, so making a priority of getting down there, and also making a priority now that I can farm to get some Saturn critter traps growing for extra hydrogen. After some mimica start to grow, then we're planting in our sweet corn. Again, just to minimize production of our micro mushers. With all that done, then it's time to get some seacomb access, getting some bionic dupes to go where there's lack of oxygen. But once we get down to the water area where we have a little bit of polluted oxygen, switching it out for the regular dupes to actually get all the seacomb seed itself. Starting to dig out a spot for some seacomb at the top of the base. Takes a lot of water to get the micro musher going. Eventually we're going to get off of it, but continuing to look for a little bit of water spots. As well as helping out in the stables here, I think I signed this to Dino, yeah, to be able to do some critter ranching. Setting up my farm for the seacomb. Really liking the setup, so I have dupes be able to go in without getting wet. But we're going to bring down the heavy bionic dupe doing this. But yeah, again, thanks to Stinger's Playground for telling me that we want to get the heavier water in first, which is not what I did my first attempt at this. About 200 kilograms across the board, and then dumping some water in. After we've got our salt water in, then I'm bringing in some water and realizing there's all kinds of spot for seacomb to grow, which is great. With that, we start planting some seacomb. Especially since I put some greenhouses in so those can grow even faster. And start expanding my stables down, or greenhouses down here. Or no, technically they were not greenhouses, just regular spots for sweet corn. And eventually be able to get away from those micro mushers. Oh, yeah. Down things to do in the dupes. So there's the setup of power bank chargers right next to the Great Hall. Very much wanting to have the auto sweeper set up with this. We can see bite down a little bit because I didn't realize that I didn't have that as high priority as I needed it. But note to self, put auto sweepers right next to that Great Hall, and dupes don't even have to load batteries in there. Food poisoning treatment. Every attempt, I'm always trying to minimize the amount of polluted or food poisoning in base. It's not needed in all cases, I understand, but just to be safe, I'm doing that. Realizing that I had harvesting on these figs, the lums can actually stomp on them themselves, so disabling that just to save a little bit of labor, and expanding the number of stables that we have access to. And then eventually we can stop harvesting. Realizing my system to take care of the germs from down here, it's going to take a little bit longer. So setting up a system where I send in just regular water with some germs for a certain amount of time. Oh, there's a liquid bridge. Once we are supplying water, because we are nearly out, taking a little bit of time back at my system here to treat the polluted water. Down here. And here I'm putting in the all-important egg incubators, letting them run all the time, unlike last time where I was trying to turn them off and on to try to save power. You know what? They're just for lums. There's not many lum eggs. Just let them run so that one of the ranching dupes, including the bionic dupes, can go in there and attend to the egg as soon as possible. Expecting a little bit more power, so obviously another hydrogen generator going in. Just putting in a special area for all the wild lum eggs. I don't want those to be processed in our incubators. So I'm thinking they're not going to going down there to snag a little bit of chlorine for our setup, and we should see so that we can kill some germs. With all this done, starting to put in a spot here for a material study terminal. Material study terminal, but the research work's not complete. Some oxygen not included. And we're on the 3rd episode. Technically, this is the 15th episode of the whole series, if you include the failed ones. But yeah, you can see the worrying about taking out demolier, so putting in some plant pulverizers and wanting to store some of that phyto oil away until I get the rest of the industrial equipment together. Realizing that a big input to this whole setup is water, putting in a bottle filler right next to this so we can convert seacomb leaves into phyto oil. Whoops. Creating a spot here for a glass forge so that we can build an emulsifier. Good work. Expanding the number of stables for the lums. You can see the mimicas there. And our incubators all going along. So this is much better than the attempts meat production before. Wonder you noticing food is getting a little bit low, so at least temporarily bringing in more farming of the sweet corn. Figs. Did have some issues here with our infinite gas storage. I've got some advice which I'll apply next time, making this a little bit wider. We'll see that in the next series, Demolier Survivors. But yeah, this had to be patched up. Actually, I think I went to the top of the basics, but the dump carbon dioxide. You know what? We are getting some of these little lumlets, critters. That is future meat. Eventually, I'm taking a few of them and putting them in stables. But once we get enough, meat conversion happens. I think these two go to the stables.
It definitely got too much.
Yeah, I can definitely tell I've got way too many, or definitely enough figs for sure. So emulsifier going in, the oxygen production system going in so I can ultimately get some gas masks. And I'm noticing here, put in my auto sweepers next time. Had to issue several times with that.
Like at this point.
So I've got my emulsifier in, and I'm putting the output, biodiesel, in through a series of metal refineries. Figure before we use the biodiesel, I might as well use that to convert, fill the metal refineries, because I need lots of metal as well in this whole setup. With more industrial equipment, expanding the number of hydrogen generators. Just to kick off a little bit of metal production, taking in some of this cold brine, switch over to a biodiesel in a little bit. Also storing away some carbon dioxide in this temporary gas reservoir until we actually get to the top of the base. Just because my infinite storage, I just never got to fix that in this playthrough. Starting in with some of the automation, lighting, and all that, where our blast shot production is going to be, and eventually stopping, consuming some of that brine, because that's not going to last for too long. Got enough metal to actually make the blast shot production area. So now we're bringing in our blast shot production. I'm having two side by side, and giving auto sweepers and that, so we can get all the inputs, including the metal, the peat, and of course hot biodiesel after going through two metal refineries going in there as well. Continually watching on the health of these lums, because this is what's either going to give us the carnivore achievement or not. And just making sure that they're happy producing eggs. And making sure if they're old enough, we need to replace them, as the case for this guy that we attack. Speaking of meat, always looking for tough meat and wild critters. So going identify that, making sure we get down to this location, any other locations to be able to grab that as well. Feathers to deal with the stress, another thing as well. So getting some gas masks, starting our way up. At this point, haven't made any blast shots just yet, but knowing that they're going to be on the way, let's get a path up to the top of the base. At this point, I'm making sure that our bionic dupes has at least one tidying booster and lots of engineering or electrical engineering boosters, so that they can use the blast shot production as efficiently as possible. So we'll have to making lots of tender brisket, smoked fish, and veggie poppers where possible, just so we can both survive, get off of the micro musher, which I think I pretty much have at this point, and work towards the carnivore achievement. Here, again, continually looking at the health of our setup, and I'm feeling pretty good this time about getting the carnivore achievement.
Okay, all right, this is good. We're not having to feed.
Continually making our way up. Also getting out some bleachstone, because I'm realizing that I need a lot of that in the emulsifier. This setup here with 4 of those incubators is super important, so we can attend to all the eggs from these guys.
Oh no, you're just sleeping. I love how these guys sleep.
Digging up and up, this time going around some water. And at this point, getting to the top of the base on cycle 70. For intercosmic blast shots, we've got 27 at this point. And feeling pretty good about both the carnivore achievement and taking this Demolier asteroid out. And this is the final episode, clearing out the space around this blast shot system, so we can actually take this guy out. Oh, that's right. Noticing that it's a little hot up there, so carefully trying to manage that. I think I had to actually take out some of these tiles, just get some of that hot carbon dioxide, whatever gas there is, out of the way, so overheating doesn't happen. Poor bite.
I don't understand.
little bit of medical equipment, but ultimately taking out some of that wallpapering helped quite a bit. Lots of chlorine I see down there too, though. So that lower section, I think, is mostly for the bionic dupes. Because my infinite storage didn't work out, also making a high priority of getting carbon dioxide, as well as, of course, the chlorine gas pipe up, so that doesn't go up towards the living area, the regular dupes. Notice a little bit of polluted oxygen going into the line, so making sure we clean up around where we're scooping in some oxygen.
On the
Plant pulverizer going for the phyto oil. Incubators going. Everything at this point is looking really good. Lots of hydrogen at the bottom of the base, even with some of the Saturn critter traps not happy.
Okay, they've been sleeping so much. Okay, so I'm gonna give this to farmer.
Stress was a big thing, especially since I started off with stressing these guys out for some binge eating. So using some of those feathers to get some tickled toesies, as you see there in the barracks. Alternating who can sleep in those. Basically, the most stressed gets to sleep where there's a little bit of carpeting. Oh, the auto sweeper there for loading in those intercosmic blast shots, also super useful. At this point, I'm realizing that our system doesn't quite have enough power, so planning in a separate transformer for the very top area of the base. Got a lot of advice about getting meat from Pacos. Didn't really do that this time, but definitely going to be looking at that in the future. My food area, which I was using the feather biome, was not always working out the best, mostly because of liquid, polluted water. So I ultimately put in, in the 2 phases, I put in a fridge area. We'll cover our deep freezer area later, I guess.
My deep mind,
just to make sure that we get the carnivore achievement, I found a jobbo here, which is pretty old, deciding we're going to attack them to pull in some meat to work towards the carnivore achievement. And the intercosmic blast shot production, getting their last little blast shots made, having them sent out, ultimately leading to the demise of Demolier and our success. There's the jobbo going down. Of course, I'm restricting the dupes from eating that, and they'll be sent to the smoker. And the output of the smoker will
how close is this guy?
will be what the dupes eat. So many missiles. Oh, and there it is, the blast line of defense. So I get the blast line of defense before I did the carnivore achievement. I find this one a little bit easier. Maybe I'll feel a little bit different once I experiment with Pacos. But at this point, I'm thinking, okay, this is done. All hands on deck on trying to get the carnivore achievement before cycle 100. So we're part of the way there, guys. Part of the way there.
Is going to be let's make a priority.
So my fridge system, I'm thinking, is good, but I need to do better. So we're starting to get a deep freeze production system. I thought about getting a full-scale one system, but went with something a little bit more simple.
There's no access to the back here.
Here's my deep freezer system. The all-important meat that we create, let's make sure it does not go bad and goes into the stomachs of the dupes, so we can ultimately get the carnivore achievement. So we've got some hydrogen that's going to be going into this whole setup, cooling it off, and then ultimately setting the food there in that zone. Specialized transformer for our cooling system going in. A little bit of an overheating area, so I decided to send those thermo regulators in a little bit of a cooler space. Obviously some insulated line for hydrogen going in and out of the spot, but temperature starts to drop. Then we've got our deep freezers set up. I've started instructing the dupes to, at priority, at the first ration box, put anything that is meat-based, and all the other food, if you've got time, throw it there. Make sure that doesn't go as bad. But ultimately, feeling like I'm really good, because any of the meat we do cook is going to be in a deep frozen update. We're just going to simply wait. We gotta get rid of those thermoregulators. Otherwise, we'll have to continually repair.
Setup's not done.
With some of the extra time now that we get a deep freezer, just looking in these little morsels of meat that are around, that's also going to help us in this particular case, making sure chlorine doesn't go in large amounts towards our base.
No.
Connecting in the bottom of the base, I realized that I forgot power here for quite a while. Ended up didn't mattering too much. Probably because I wasn't using the micro mushroom nearly as much as my previous playthroughs. But yeah, definitely wanting to pull this in and having just bionic dupes go in that zone because obviously so much carbon dioxide.
Okay, actually, you know what? Look at that.
So the incubator setup 4 ended up being good, attacking these guys.
Let's make it
was a little bit short metal here, so that's why I had to destroy and redestroy this little guy to output some polluted water.
Just water is our issue. 16,000 calories.
So cycle 92, and this is where I start calculating, do I have enough? I believe I do. But continually watching this, looking at any wild critters to see if, yeah, in fact, at this point, just to be absolutely sure that everyone eats meat, the only thing on the menu is meat as long as meat's available. I don't want anyone to starve, so every cycle carefully trying to monitor that.
To shoot, I just assumed
one thing here is I realized that I've left this system running, which is continually producing heat. Didn't realize that. I should have turned this off after I've got to the last blast of defense, but at least I'm realizing at this point.
Okay.
That is turned off and no longer producing heat.
Half the amount that you get.
Finding some tough meat at the bottom of the base. Just a little bit nervous, so at this point, continually looking out for as many places as I can. Continually calculating everything, hoping that the smokers are going to produce tender brisket and other meat-based meals. I think one regret is I didn't explore some of the top biomes where I had some jawbows. But 397,000 at this point. This is the point where I just hang out at the Great Hall. I can see some tender brisket left there on the floor. Considering, do I need to stress any dupes out? I don't think, no, definitely not at this point. But if I was just down to one cycle, maybe I would. The last few dupes, just checking, he's eating tender brisket, chef. Then we see, finally, finally, the Carnivore achievement and the blast line of defense done. You guys have no idea how many. Oh, well, unless you maybe watched the whole series, then you definitely do. It was a long road to get to here. So if you haven't seen the whole series and you're interested in doing that, that's out as well. But if you're also curious to see me try to survive if Demolier hadn't destroyed us, that's going to be a thing as well. Anyway, thanks for watching my little highlight reel on getting these 3 achievements together here on the Jerassic Asteroid.